Warning, this video may contain spoilers for late parts in the game. If you plan on playing this at some point, turn back now. You have been warned. CR with a review for the third Thai game, Night of the Quinkan. I personally like this game, but I'll probably do a top 4 Thai games list after and go in depth more on why it is placed where it is. Overall, it's a good experience, and I had fun throughout my playthrough, finally achieving 100% completion in all the Thai games I've played before. Our review on Thai 4 will definitely happen though. Let's get to the basics. This game, for the most part, plays the same as its predecessors, but adds new gameplay to it. To re-explain if you haven't seen my other Thai reviews, you play as Thai, a boomerang-throwing Tasmanian tiger. Strange, but the platforming and fighting in the series is pretty top tier to me, and helped me in a recent playthrough of Wario World that I hadn't beaten before. This game added 2 things though: actual fighting and a boomerang system to give the rangs different abilities. The actual fighting is literal though, as before in the games all you did was throw boomerangs and fight. Now when in close range you actually dual wield the boomerangs, which is great. The boomerang system is pretty cool too, utilizing stones that you find throughout the game where you can equip with elemental abilities to rangs, as well as a bunch of quality of life things, especially for people who are looking to 100% the game without cheating, though it costs a lot. I'll explain my reasoning for utilizing it in the extra section. There is another game mode added as well where you fly around in a gunyip, shooting enemies down. Racing is back as well, and just as smooth, though some of the tracks are pretty annoying, but everything is doable and only took around 10 hours. They switched out one segment from the second game though. Instead of the 4B, you drive the Crab Mercible, which you can actually jump in, leading there to be another change. Now, collectibles can be collected in the overworld. Time for the story. The beginning of this game is pretty much seen in Thai 2 for 100% completion, but it is changed a little bit. Instead, Nandu Gili says quickly that when Boss Cass was freed from prison, during the same time in the dreaming, evil had begun invading it. He opens a portal to the dreaming, Tai and Shazza go through it, entering the dreaming on the other side. They see a giant monster, and Nandu Gili explains that those are the evil he was speaking of, Quinkan, who overran their world in endless war. Tai wants to go and fight them, but is stopped by Nandu, who says they can only be harmed through the use of the Shadow Stone, which has taken the form of the Bunyip Gauntlet, which he tells Tai to retrieve. Tai gets the gauntlet, and Malian shows up, the original guardian of the gauntlet. He tells Tai to go to the Quinkan vortex atop the citadel. Tai and Shazza reach the top and destroy the vortex, and are almost sucked in before the vortex collapses in on itself. Tai then has a training montage where he learns to use the gauntlet better. After this training, Nandu Gili attempts to return Tai and Shazza to their home. During this, a Quinkan follows them through, and Shazza gets sucked away, followed shortly by Tai. When Tai finally lands back in his world, he arrives in an unfamiliar and rundown looking area, with many Quinkan and a new enemy, zombie frills. Another Tasmanian tiger shows up and helps Tai defeat the enemies he's surrounded by. After they defeat the enemies, the new tiger says his name is Ridge, and reveals that the rundown place they're in is Burramudgee, or what's left of it. He then also reveals that the general is none other than Dennis. Dennis tells Tai that when he had pushed the Quinkan out of the dreaming, they ended up fleeing to Southern Rivers, and Tai had actually been gone for 6 months, where the Quinkan overpowered the people of Southern Rivers by possessing frills and turning them into zombies. Eventually, Bush Rescue called it quits after Duke, Mari, and Julius left. Sly and Shazza couldn't do it all alone and disbanded it when Tai never showed back up. The first thing the group decides to do is reform Bush Rescue by getting back everyone who left. The first person he gets back is Mori after Tai races him. He then goes to find Julius, who was kidnapped by his evil uncle Carlos, who was in this second game. Tai then wins Julius back by testing out Carlos' battle arena. Duke is saved by the gang after he was forced to land behind enemy lines. A lot of shenanigans happens with Tai helping around Southern Rivers before he is told about a big Quinkan that is stopping travel to the other half of what's left of Southern Rivers. He goes to investigate and comes face to face with the Hexaquin, defeating it, opening a path for everyone. Tai meets up with Shaza immediately after, but she is captured by some Quinkan. During the chase, Tai gets occupied by a strange purple and yellow dinosaur-themed robot that turns out to be Fluffy. Just before Tai gets too pissed off at Fluffy for wasting his time, Sly appears and tells them that they all need to work together if they're ever going to defeat the Quinkan. Fluffy mentions that Boss Cass might have an idea where Shaza was taken. Tai ventures to Cassopolis that was mentioned all the way back at the beginning of the second game, and Cass informs Tai that he'll help, but only if Tai helps him as well. Tai then does a buttload of tasks for Cass before they finally pinpoint Shaza's location and find that she is being held by the menacing Dragon Quinn, which Tai deals with in his Gunyip. With Shaza back, she tells them what she was learned while being held captive. Apparently, a Quinkan known as the Quinn King will be arriving in Southern Rivers, and the gang sets out to find a way to defeat it. Mori tells them about the mysterious lizard that knows of a way to defeat it, but Tai's parents swoop in, saying that he's gone missing. They go to the last place the mysterious lizard was seen, and Shaza, Fluffy, and Tai fight their way to a mountainside through hordes of Quinkan before finally finding Steve. Yes, Goo Steve. Now completely understanding what he meant when he said he was hiding from them in the previous game. He tells the gang that he fought against them 1,000,000 years prior, saying they were a general nuisance throughout the land, smashing hills and drinking rivers. He says that he also collected shadow stones, and that when the Quinkan eventually left, he buried a shadow ring that utilized the power of the shadow stones in a hot place. He tells them to go to Kakaboom Island to find it. Tai does some more shenanigans before meeting up with Fluffy at Kakaboom Island, where they fight more hordes of Quinkan and 3 Magma Quinkan, who each hold a piece of the Shadow Ray. The area that the final Magma Quinkan was in also held the Shadow Stones, too far away to reach. Fluffy, taking one last chance to utilize her rocket launcher, blasts the rock and loosens the stones, which Tai then collects, but only for a short time as pieces of the mountain hit Tai, causing the stones to fall into lava. The active volcano explodes, forcing Tai to find the stones throughout Southern Rivers. He retrieves one from Carlos, another from racing with the Redback gang, and the final from Ranger Ken, who found it in a snowy mountain. With access to the full power of the Shadow Ring, a portal opens in Southern Rivers that the group try to head to. Tai gets in his Gunyip, but the carrier with all his friends is blasted down from the sky as it launches. A bunch of Quinkan surround the area, and Tai tries to turn back, but the Redback gang come and help out the crew, letting Tai travel to the portal. He eventually reaches it, and somehow the gang followed him through to give more moral support as they leave the rest of Tai, which is explained why they did this, and yes, it's for the plot. Tai gets to the top and finds himself face to face with Boss Cass, who is being controlled by the Quinn King, who reveals that Cass had actually invited them in the first place. He then turns into the form of Tai, who he says is the most powerful being on the planet. After Tai wounds this form, the Quinn King transforms again into a giant dinosaur form, both forms actually giving a challenge. Tai once again defeats the Quinn King, tiring both of them out, but neither truly defeated. Boss Cass comes out of nowhere though, this time with hostages of Fluffy, Shaza, and Sly, aiming Fluffy's rocket launcher at them. The Quinn King laughs, thinking this will be his win, but Cass says that his plan all along was to kill both Tai and the Quinn King at the same time, to wipe out both dangerous foes. He aims at them, but Fluffy jumps in, pushing Tai away. This kills both Fluffy and the Quinn King, and the Quinkans either just die when the Mastermind did, or otherwise return to their home with no leader. Cass actually feels sorry for what he did, and is taken willingly back to prison, while Bush Rescue honors the hero of Fluffy by building a memorial statue in New Burramudgee. After a while though, Carlos comes in with his assistants, who arrive at the aftermath of the battle and find a piece of Fluffy's tail, laughing maniacally. The new combat system has some jankiness at times, but overall is a nice addition that looks really smooth. The same goes for the addition of the stones, which takes the place of most of the boomerangs, but in the end becomes super useful, especially when going for 100% completion. The story, while slightly disjointed, stays interesting and fun throughout its entirety, and having the good and bad guys team up and take on an even worse threat is one of my favorite story beats. Ultimately, while the world to travel around is big, it's pretty empty, even with all the collectibles. I don't know if they did this because of the story or there were time constraints. The levels themselves are all pretty similar, which, don't get me wrong, they're fun, but just visually I had a hard time telling some apart, especially on the bunyip sections. In general, the changes are nice, but I did feel like the game was missing the major advancements that the second game added to the first. But, I mean, you can't reinvent the wheel every single game. There are a good amount of extras in this game, with some of the mainstays returning. Missions, which I mentioned this time, though I don't think any of the missions were optional in this game, because I finished the game exactly at the right number. Picture frames and bilbies returning, with the bilbies being again the hardest things to find. Then there are Goobu Steve, chromes, Goobu berries, bunyip skins, and boomerangs. You can also collect a bunch of stones in the wild, and for achieving certain things in the races or even story missions. After beating the game, you also lose the Shadow Rang, though it wasn't much different from a normal boomerang anyway. Also, like I was saying I would discuss before, the stones help with collecting everything, with 2 to 4 being the most helpful. If you equip 3 water stones, it makes enemies who get hit freeze. This even goes to the Quinkan, which thrown boomerangs usually deal no damage. It increases the damage done to most enemies as well. Then for the Ultra Stones, will cause the boomerang to beep if used in first person mode. 2 of them equipped makes the boomerang beep in third and first person mode. This feels like cheating, which you can actually activate a cheat that does the same thing, but I think there's a difference in this game if you don't want to be going in random bushes to find picture frames that are really difficult to see. This makes the Ultra Stone extremely necessary in order to 100% the game, which previous games it wasn't necessary for me and usually didn't work when I tried. Technically, I guess the legit way would be to search everywhere, but I didn't even know there would be collectibles like this that weren't as hidden in previous games, especially since most of the bushes that you have to look around for are in the overworld when you're in the Crab Mercible, which makes it really hard to see them. The Zoom Stone allows boomerangs to be thrown farther and allows the sniper to zoom more in first-person view mode. More stones, further zoom, and flight range. Then finally, the magnet stones made things magnetized to you. What's so good about this is that it works for collectibles as well. 1 brings in opals, 2 brings in picture frames, and 3 brings in chrome orbs and Goobu berries. The other stones are cool to experiment with though. I enjoyed playing through this game, but it does have its faults. I'm finally nearing the end of the Tide journey as we'll be playing through it soon. I don't know if there's collectibles in the 4th entry, but I plan on doing that, and probably putting the games to rest in my memory until I get the hankering to replay them. The Chrome Studio has been doing a whole bunch for Tide fans these last couple of years, and I don't know if there's a 5th game in the works, but I'll be happy either way. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next video.